Dispatch number 25, Dark Days, Part 2. Moulton sprinted over and embraced the captain, thinking that he had lost his brother for good after leaving the Brazorian casino. The rest of the crew exchanged hugs and handshakes, grateful that they were able to reunite before it was time for them to be sacrificed. "How have all you guys been able to survive here?" exclaimed Reimer. "This is literally the wind base that we're talking about." "Yeah, you're not kidding. It hasn't been easy," responded the Captain Monstar as he adjusted the straps that he'd been improvising as a belt. "They dang near starved us to death before you all arrived." "Couldn't be happier to see another human besides these two," said Captain Wolfpup, grinning as he stared back at the captain counterparts. Putting his hands on both Risk and Reimer's shoulders, "It's good to see you, boys." All right. Enough sucking up. How are we getting out of here?" asked Captain Brian, anxious to get out of the prison that they've been held up in the past week. "Your guess is as good as mine," said Reimer, as he foolishly attempted to pull the prison bars apart from in front of him. "Looks like Risk is up to something, though." The crew turned back to look over the corner of the prison cell, where they'd found payload specialist messing with something near his belt buckle. "Hey, man, we've made it this far without having to establish a pea corner. Let's not start now, please," said Captain Wolfpup jokingly. "But seriously, though, what's going on over here?" "You promise you won't freak out if I tell you?" said Risk apprehensively, knowing that it was time to relay to the crew what he was working on. Buddy, you're scaring me," said Reimer. "Come out with it." Risk turned around, revealing the seal of Elsindor that held its within the two relics of Simeon's Ulteria II. The captains tried to look through their fingers while shielding their eyes, the bright yet warm glow of the seal penetrating their attempts. A few seconds went by as Risk tied the seal back around his neck, tucking it in underneath his shirt. Time to explain, mi amigo," stuttered Captain the Monstar. "What in the alien juju heck is that?" "So, it is true what King Aras and Ringbolt were murmuring about the last two planets. This is the seal of Elsindor thingy?" said Captain Brian, having a hard time finding the words. "It certainly is," said Reimer confidently. "It also seems to have bonded with Risk, like it basically listens to everything that he says. Since Mackinnon, there hasn't been a second where he and the seal were apart." So you're okay then, mate?" Moulton said to Risk, the entire crew thinking the exact same thing. "This isn't a one ring to rule them all type scenario, is it?" No, laughed Risk as he pulled the seal back out. The two relics inserted deactivated, but they were still gleaming. "From what I understand is, the seal chose me to be its bearer after I'd rediscovered it on the Mackinnon sand dunes. There are no voices, more so just a confidence of decision-making associated with it. Like a second conscious of sorts." The rest of the crew looked at each other, mentally coming to a conclusion that Risk had never once seen the Hobbit trilogy. Before any questions could be asked, the payload specialist had already found a way to open the gate using the seal's power. "See? It's just that easy. Let's get out of here," said Risk. Reimer looked back at the rest of the crew and shrugged, following the supremely confident Risk out of Weisenfall's prison cell. With wind grunts patrolling seemingly every corridor of the prison of Weisenfall, the crew made their way from one side of the prison to the other, finally entering a hangar housing a variety of service ships. They had made it so far without making a peep until Captain Wolfpup tried to surveillance the laser with his foot. "Crap!" whispered Captain Brian. "Hey!" yelled Trizaka. "Stop! Guards, we have a prison break! The crew sprinted towards the hangar of the various artifacts, sprinting into a waste disposal ship. Reimer pulled out a small microphone from inside his vest pocket as he felt the inside of the ship rev in its engines as its preparation for takeoff. Good timing. Who'da thunk? Said Moulton, as he and Captain Wolfbuff high-fived. Elecron, can you hear me? Said Reimer over the roaring engines. Link, Ringbolt, we managed to find the captured captains on a Wynn prison base called Weisenfall. It appears to be a few clicks away from the transport hub of Omra. Think, you can do us one more favor to help us out here? A moment went by until Reimer was finally able to hear a faint response from a familiar voice. My friend, it's so glad to hear you, and the rest of the crew are safe, shrieked a delighted Elecron. I'll relay to the rest of the crew that you're in a transport headed towards Amrau. We'll intercept you once you arrive. Stay vigilant, my friend. Reimer put the microphone back in his vest pocket, smiling in relief as the rescue mission was going almost too well. The waste cargo ship took off, starting its course to the wastelander hub of Amrau. A slimy hand slammed down on the surface of the command deck. Several grunts looked in the direction of their frustrated leader, who returned their gazes with a stern face of disgust. Rivator, Trizaka, it was foolish of me to trust either of you with this task, said Nifty, annoyed by the lack of accountability from his Wen grunts. I should have known that the disrupting the boot race of Zolturia II should have been handled by someone else. Those pathetic humans are still alive. We are really sorry, my lord. We promise that we'll make it up to you, said Trizaka, as he bowed his head in shame. Yes, sorry, master, said Rivator in a jock-type manner. The two Wynn partners, when standing next to each other, were comical to watch. I did okay. Bozo over here failed, said Rivator. I did no such thing, Trizaka snapped back. If you hadn't hit the dynamite out of my hands, we wouldn't even be talking about... Enough, ingrates, said Nifty, raising his voice as he continued to grow more impatient by the second. I don't care whatever you two did back then. You already got us into this mess. Now the rest of Wynn have to clean it up for you. We cannot let those pesky flesh beings make their way off this base. We're on it, sir, said Rivator dopily. Yes, sir, on it, said Trizaka, as he smacked the back of Rivator's heads. You suck up. A loud siren made its way through the base, with security protocol voice proclaiming a message over the intercom. Attention, Wynn security! Attention, Wynn security! There has been a breach in cell B35A7. I repeat, there has been a breach in cell B35A7. Hostages are on the loose. No lives shall be spared. Screamed Nifty, taking over the Enocrom system. The humans are off the base and headed towards Amrau. All teams after them! Destiny's fortune soared through the asteroid field they just laid out into the old entrance to the recently abandoned moon of Amrau, a pub hub back in its heyday. The Arderian moon was mostly used as a transportation site to send travelers back and forth through portals created by the Arderian gods. As Commander Sean weaved in and out of the massive asteroids, Ringbolt chimed in with a little history of the hub that they were zeroing in on. Oh man, these days that we're used to have the Amrau pubs, said the old turtle warrior. The good old days. This one time, Vadim tricked this broad into thinking that he was a god, and I'm sure that we can save these sorts of stories for another time that isn't as pressing, interrupted King Aras, smirking as he tried to divert the conversation. Man, I was actually enjoying the beginning of that story, commented Commander Vaughn, popped up in his hospital bed a few meters away from the rest of the flight deck. Anyway, let's get back on track here, said King Aras. Commander, how is the ship navigating? We're hanging in there, my friend, said Commander Sean, swerving around the tight gap in between the two large boulders. It's going to take a lot more than this field to get me to make a mistake. Turn me up. After a few more minutes of navigating through the asteroid field, Destiny's Fortune had finally arrived, and now the abandoned transportation hub of Amrau. It's quiet, way too quiet, considering this is the teleportation side to the other side, said Ringbull, taken aback by his own comments. So, the story of wind destruction is more true than we thought. The Bisonval waste transport made its way through the asteroid field as it landed on the gate just outside Amra's abandoned walls. All right, Reimer, we're ready for you, said Elecron as Destiny's Fortune made itself visible to the escaping crew members. The captains and the crew started quietly making their way off the ship while trying not to be seen. But before we're off the transport, Risk pulled the Captain Brian aside. Here, before we go any further, said Risk as he took off the seal of Ilsendor, placing it around Captain Brian's neck. This belongs to you now. Please take care of it for me. Unable to process what that meant in the moment, the captain nodded and felt part of his soul leave his body. His first meeting with the Arderian gods well underway. The payload specialist turned around and took one last look at Destiny's Fortune, turned and headed towards the hub center. Where's he off to? We have a battle to fight, said Reimer. No clue, said Captain Brian's subconscious, his soul in another dimension. The Legion of Wen and their fearless, heated leader had finally surrounded the moon of Amrau, with Destiny's Fortune well within its perimeter. Nifty's solo ship slowly maneuvered around some smaller asteroids, with the moon's orbit landing abruptly next to the hijacked wasted ship that the crew had used to escape the prison. The Wind Leader exited the spaceship and used his blaster to destroy a section of nearby rubble, revealing the shimmering relic of Amrau. Finally, the time has come to use this extraordinary power, said Nifty, aloud for everyone listening to hear. By the power of the moon relic of Amrau, I command that this Arderian portal awake from its slumber, said Nifty, emphatically. You shall now be open. The grounds of the hub began to shake, consequently forcing the nearby asteroid field to move incoherently as well. Destiny's Fortune had no choice but to back off away from the volatile, pummeling space rocks, unable to risk being seen after witnessing Nifty's power. The hard rock surface continued to vibrate underneath the Wind's leader's feet, slowly starting to reveal a portal that appeared to be sleeping for several hundred years. A swirling view of cosmos lay ahead for those brave enough to jump in. The Arderian transportation system only granted its services to those who held the ancient artifacts created by the gods several thousand years ago. At last, said Nifty, rubbing his hands together with joy, the first portal is now open. My soul can now live out its destiny. Not if I have anything to do about it, yelled a voice that had been watching from the shadows. The payload specialist lunged, grabbing onto Nifty's horns at the back of his skull, jamming his knees as hard as he possibly could into the Wind Warlord's back while attempting to fight for that relic piece. After a series of screams and grunts, Nifty threw an elbow back into Risk's jaw, causing his head to slam back into the wall behind him and loosening his grip for just a brief second. After being able to free one hand, Nifty grabbed the stone and smirked, clenching his fist, throwing the seal piece in the air. The distraction caused Risk to relax his grip of the horns, launching him flat on his back as he saw the relic of Amrau fall to the ground. Before he could get to his feet, he looked back at Nifty, who was pointing a blaster in the direction of the relic. Scrambling to his feet, Risk sprinted a few strides and leapt full speed at the Wind Leader. Nifty took one look at the outreached human lumbering towards him, jumped backward into the Arderian portal, and pulled the trigger. The sky erupted into a fireball of debris, filling the empty night sky with a luminous orange glow. The impact of the blaster caused a chemical reaction that destroyed the relic of Amral, obliterating everything within 100 meters of the explosion. All nearby ships had their communication systems temporarily disabled due to the radioactive blaster, resulting in several minutes of lifeless drifting through the war-torn sector of the galaxy. As the dust began to settle, all that could be seen of the battle site was a vast crater, the temporary portal created by the relic disappearing without a trace. Members of Destiny's Fortune looked on helplessly, unable to process the falling of yet another crew member. No longer was the journey about saving Earth. It was about exacting revenge.